Look, for the process of it, we wanted to actually make a professional enhancement process. Lots of people in your school, pretty well everybody, will have some opinion about what constitutes a kid that's struggling and what constitutes a disability. Going through the training broadened our eyes, mine included, and we've got a special class, so we're quite involved with kids who are on the sharper end of the disability scale. So, for us, in the context of last year, we would have had 8 little kids, junior primary special class, and across a school of 400, only 8 verified NEPs. Good water down where we are. So, for us, it was the opener, because we really have those kids that fit into that classic wave 2. You know, that area where you're supposed to throw a lot of your effort, because those are the kids that you're more likely to be able to move forward. So, our staff were well prepared in their head. The training gave them a bit of clarity about what they could count and not count. So the kid who never listens because they're too busy playing with their shoelaces, not necessarily a disability. Not enhancement, but not a disability. But the other child who would try to listen, but the background noise, etc., was scrambling the message, so the CAP kids, they now had a chance to get some data collected about them. What will happen with that in the future, we're not quite sure. But the process was quite simple. And the collection method, Jan worked on that to make it as simple as possible for a staff member to go through and within less than 5 minutes have documented the child in their class. A whole class of 30 kids, even if you had half of them you thought fell into the category, it shouldn't take you much more than half an hour to do the whole lot. Because for your staff, they should have some records, some evidence of how the child's performing compared to the mainstream. So whether that be test results, a report, one of those letters from the audiologist saying they have got CAP, but we just have to use other methods to deal with it, like one of these. It was a chance. So it was just a quick run through the photocopier, click, click, and it was all together. That doesn't mean it's a process you should rush and dismiss, but it was a great process for us to start talking about the accommodations. And that was an interesting staff room conversation. Not just about who, but about the what. And how do you accommodate a child that presents like, and then the way they went. So I'll let Jan tell you about the modified form.
Yeah. When you get stuff and you read it through and you make it easy, your highlighter is your best friend. Go through, you can highlight whether it's neurological, physical, intellectual, cognitive, etc., sensory, or whatever thing they've got to do. And then at the bottom, just highlight it. And then just put some notes down the bottom, like it might be reading age, chronological age, NAPLAN, whatever, results on that one. And this one highlights your adjustments. Okay, what adjustments are you making? So you might be finding that you're doing a heap of adjustments, and some might be in the supplementary and some might be in the substantial, and you've got to work out which way you go. And you keep those, put those together, put them in a plastic sleeve with any other samples of work or pictures or whatever you've got, reports. And then we also stapled onto it the permission slip from the parent. Put it in a plastic sleeve, goes in the kids' folder. Simple as that. But this definitely made it a lot easier for the teachers. Gave them these, off they went, filled them in, bang, 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 done. And a lot of them just sat around after a staff meeting and did it and got them through. But yeah, just variation on what actually was given to us that made it a bit easier for them. And they can actually see, when you highlight stuff, you can actually see where it fits. And that's what we did. Simple as that.
And the second part to it that helped was all the identified children were then, we looked at the spread across the school, so in a primary school. Some people have got more in the class than others. So that was also an assistant, and that we used that again at the beginning of this year to look at the balance of all our SSO support time out in the classrooms, so that they could assist the teacher to release the teacher to work with the child who's got the greatest need. So those sorts of things. So it was a win-win all round for us. It was a great professional conversation. It didn't take a lot of time, and it gave us more data, and it gave people an opportunity to put forward their concerns about a child's ability to engage in schooling and what were those, inhibiting factors. So it was quite liberating for a lot of people. Anything else you wanted to talk about?
Question.
You said you use that data to look at exercise support. So obviously once it's entered in ESAS, is there some way you can run a report to get a whole school overview of the different levels and adjustments to the
Yes, there is a button you can push, and what you do is you go and ask that lady in the office, and she knows all the buttons. I just describe what I'm looking for, and look, it's like magic, it appears on my table.
Yeah, it's important to get it's really good to get an overall view, but collecting the data that goes with it. I mean, you've got NAPLAN, you've got PAT-R, you've got PAT-MATHS, you've got Torch, you've got running records, you've got all this stuff anyway in your schools, and your teachers should have that anyway, and you might chuck a couple of samples, might have IEPs, you've got all that sort of stuff. We just put it all with it, site reports, etc., etc. The site reports you never get any funding for. You now found a use for them. Speech reports you don't get any funding for. You now found a use for them. So don't ever throw them out. Just attach them and put it with it, and it sits in there.
Can I ask out of interest how many kids you identified in this process,
Yeah,
given that you only had 8?
We've got 400, actually at the time we had 464 kids in the school. We identified 53.
So 1 in 9.
Yeah, and we're category 6, very middle class. Like you said, about 6 NEPs, and that's about it, other than special class. Yeah, but this really picked up. We knew we had Wave 2 kids. We knew we had lots of kids with dyslexia and that sort of stuff, and actually picked them up. We knew that anyway, but it's sort of giving a bit of...
And that quite often appears on your site reports. This child has a learning difficulty. And they use the other D word. And then, things like classic problems with working memory, receptive language, which will, and they can then give you a whole series of suggestions of accommodations to make in the class. Before we'd call that the differentiation for that child, but that it's for that teacher it's a little bit more than just providing different entry and exit points.
Sorry, this is a practical question.
Go for it.
So did you, with those sheets,
Yep.
did the teachers just continue to add things to them over the 10-week period and then hand them in at the end so that it was an accumulation of data on a student? Or did you get one each time they made an adjustment for a child over the 10-week period?
Accumulated data. For most people, and once again, we're referring from a primary school setting where we tend to see the children and know because you're sitting next to somebody talking about it over lunch. Most people would have been, once they've done their training, could have filled out that documentation
There and then.
there and then. And so the rest of the 10 weeks just rolled along. Other people took a little bit longer to jot it down, so we used the 10 weeks as a collection period. But the justifier was, if it was a broken limb, did the adjustment need to last for 10 weeks or not?
Thank you.
Yeah. Another question, go for it.
So, just thinking about, like I'm assuming you do something along the lines of the NIB release being around a particular subject area like art, that sort of type stuff. So, were you expected, say for instance, that art teacher to participate in this process with the classroom teacher in terms of primary school, in primary school settings or not?
They went and made commentary to what we call them, a home group teacher, a home teacher. So my 5-6 teacher would have identified a child, John, with various things. The sports teacher might have said, look, I do need to make, when he comes to sport, these special accommodations, because he's got that problem with his ankle. So he can't run, he can't be involved in these sorts of activities as much as his peers. So I get him to do the coach come referee role. So he understands all the rules of the game, etc., but can't always physically participate in it. So they would have just added that to their
As a comment, just as a comment.
Would you lay sort of the collection responsibility in some ways, because like we are in a high school setting, we've got potentially up to 8 different teachers. Would you be thinking about sort of locating that responsibility for the collection of just the paperwork with the home group teacher in a high school sort of setting?
We were just talking about that
Yeah,
whilst
you
we
bring
were
that
here.
came up before, and I said yes.
I don't know that the home group teacher would know all the accommodations, but if somebody in tech studies said that John needed this accommodation, then it goes to John's home group teacher. So they might get 3.
You know, you're talking about 50. I'm thinking we've already got to verify cohort of 150 before I can start. I'm thinking my office is not big enough to hold that paper.
So those 150 you can write off, not write off, but tick off straight away. Click, 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 NEP document behind it.
That's what you're going to work out.
Always needs, because it's an NEP, automatically significant modification of curriculum.
Well,
Part of the practice course, you'll have your staff identified, okay? They'll talk to you about that, and what we said was, okay, once you've identified children who need this accommodation, and we talked about the level of, my expectation would be nothing should be a surprise to a parent, never should they get a surprise in their mid-year, end-of-year report, interview. It should be something, if you were concerned that it needed to be made different, my expectation was you'd already had a chat with the parent in some sort. So they're already pre-versed with it, and most of the time looking to the school to provide something for their child to make the jump and bridge the gap. So for us, we just sent out the letter, but as we said, we modified it, because I think the first paragraph starts off with your child being identified under a disability, and just the language can be quite confronting. So we put our own, and it's just a verification that the parent agrees that their child needs something extra to get through in the class, something, you know, more than just a small differentiation of the curriculum.
And you said that once
Once they were
decided,
identified.
we're going to identify that child.
Once they were identified.
And
Yep.
then clip it off when it comes back and clip it off. Start
If the parent had sent back
with no.
no, we would still keep the identification data, because that is just an assessment of a child. But what the letter says is, don't put it on EdSAS.